started.
This is Toasted with Revolution News and Information, and today is the disclaimers with Dave and Ed Johnston. It is 3/20/2017. Take it away, Dave and Ed. Have a good show.
Thank you. My name is Ed Johnston, and Dave Buess will be joining me here in a few minutes. We are not attorneys. We are not lawyers. We are men that have sat there and been through the hard knocks and gone through the up and down structures of this. So we know about pain and suffering and the frustration we all go through. The most important, valuable lesson is
with Dave and Ed Johnston. It is 3/20/2017.
So we know what's going on.
Take it away.
This way we all know what the truth is. We don't want to get caught up in structures that people don't know what's going on, especially ourselves. We don't want to get caught up in people's hearsay and that type of stuff. When people have questions, we definitely answer them. We don't have an issue with that whatsoever. But the main part of it is to be respectful of one another. And so this way we work with education. I'm still working on the structure on the Cape Brown recall. I haven't finished that up yet. I am getting ready to get that finished. And then once I get that finished, I'll get the recall happening. My goal is to get it done this week, and that's what I'm still hoping for, to get it done this week, because I like to get it done and start it before my birthday. But that's just my own dream and thoughts and that stuff. But anyhow, we want to get into quite a few conversations me and Dave have had over the phone. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Dave and let Dave start with the introduction. On his side, we are glad and appreciate that you've all joined us. And so that's the whole point about it, is so this way we know the truth. I've talked to several people today. I even talked to a company today, Worlds of Music in Chicago. Apparently they're getting attacked for supporting Trump. So I sent them a whole bunch of educational knowledge. Apparently these men and women, the two owners of the store, are supposed to be on national news. So they had some questions. So I sent them some information to answer some of them questions. So that way when they do on the show, they actually have the evidence to talk about that they knew, but they didn't know it. They knew how to talk it, but they didn't have the proof in their hands. So made sure that they had some of the evidence in their hands. So this is the whole point about working together to educate each other, so we know what's going on. If we don't educate each other, the children will not be educated. Remember, the most important thing, it is your bloodline. And if you don't take care of your bloodline, you become extinct. And that is a reality point. We don't want to become extinct. You know, we become extinct, we're all going to be in a world of hurt down the road, and civilization, as they call it. Of course, I don't like the word civilization from England because I try not to be as civilized as some. But, this is the one point that, life has its up and down moments, and without that, we wouldn't have life. So, Dave, I'm going to turn the floor over to you. I'll be bringing in a couple other comments here once I get the other point up that I wanted to bring into the conversation, and read a couple things so that way it was in for record, so that way people knew some of the other evidence that they could put in their affidavits and instruments. So with that, we do thank you all for joining us, and Dave, the floor is yours.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's good to have you with us tonight, and as Ed said, we are not attorneys, we are not lawyers, we have been through the school of hard knocks, and that's some of the best education you'll ever get, because you get experience along with the school of hard. So that being said, we want to welcome you to the show. It's been a busy week for me this last week. I've gotten into a lot of research and that kind of thing, and which led me to draft an affidavit of truth relating to violation of due process.
Excuse me, Dave. I'm going to be muting a couple people. You can mute yourself back in, but I'm trying to eliminate some of the static noise. Yeah, and I think that's, what is that again, host? What is it, 1 star?
Yeah, star 6.
Star 6, okay. So, yeah, if you can mute yourself until you're ready to speak, we'd appreciate that, because that helps the background noise. Sorry about that, Dave. The floor is back yours.
You can mute yourself on your own phone, so you don't have to be muted by us. So if you are listening and you're just listening, just go ahead and mute yourself out. Then if you have a question come our Q&A session, you can mute yourself back in.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, as I was saying, I got really fed up with the IRS forms. They have a form number 211 and a 14039, I believe it is, where they investigate. You file in a complaint, and then they are responsible. However, their form is loaded with traps, such as taxpayer. You are a taxpayer. Well, I'm sorry. I'm a non-taxpayer. And we uncovered the Form 515. Michelle did. I should say Michelle. I'm going to give her the credit for it because she's the one who tipped everybody off on this. And I appreciate Michelle's work because you talk about somebody who will get in there and dig and dig and dig and dig until she buries the bone. Michelle is that kind of a lady. Michelle, are you on here tonight yet?
I don't think she's on yet. No, she's not on yet. She said she was going to pop in because she's working on an instrument right now.
Okay. Well, anyway, it was the IRS forms that got me fed up with the fact that we're letting the fox guard the hen house. And so that led me to create this document, violation of due process. I've got it posted on the web. I had to revise it today because of keylogger hackers. And I wrote a letter to Congress, and on this document I now have OMB number pending because I asked Congress to put an OMB number on this affidavit because we do not have anything of our government, we the people's government, that has an OMB number on it. And I would really like to know why that is. Well, I hadn't any more and got this written and started spreading it on the internet, and I got this little pop-up menu at the bottom of the screen that says the American Bar Association has not approved this form. Well, I wrote to Congress a letter and I asked them in relationship to this document. I said, why are we practicing British law in American courts? Why is the BAR, B-A-R, British Accreditation Registry, writing the rules of court? The civil rules of civil procedure, the criminal rules of criminal procedure. Why are they writing our courts' laws and regulations in America? Why are we doing business with the Queen? Why are we in the legal system and not the lawful system? I haven't had a response to that yet, but I hope I woke them up somewhat as to what their responsibilities are to we, the men and women of this nation, as their bosses. We're not going to put up with this corporate crap anymore. We're not going to put up with paperwork that is so screwed up that a lot of it doesn't even make any sense. And that's what led me to write this almost 8-page document. It's a very simple form. You cut, copy, and paste it, put it on your document, it's line numbered and all that, so that you can follow along. If you have any editing to do in it, the line number's there, so you know exactly what it is you want to edit. Once you're done, you submit it to the U.S. Secret Service. It deals with identity theft and a lot of other things, which fraud upon the court's another one. It shows where that you may have been had procedural errors in due process violations that affected your life, your liberty, or your property. And so this is a very simple form that you can use if you feel you were violated in your due process rights by any government entity. Like I said, it's very simple to follow. What the IRS form does not have on it is the fact that if you had your rights violated in fraud against the court, when they read that, that's when I started having trouble with this thing getting hacked. They would have it hacked before I could finish a page. I had to keep going back to see if they actually undid what I had already written. This thing took me 3 days. 9 pages took me 3 days to write it. I faxed it over to Congress late yesterday afternoon. Got up this morning, went to get into it to check on a couple of things I wanted to add. Lo and behold, they had her hacked already. So this is password protected, by the way, on my computer, and they still got into the document, and keylogger hacked it. So I think it's time that our public and elected officials comprehend the fact that they work for we, the men and women of this nation. And I so stated it. It says, under number 1, show that the elected, appointed, and hired public servants of the government in this republic have deprived you of a non-trivial protected interest, one that the Supreme Court would recognize as falling into one of the 3 boxes above, and that was life, liberty, and prosperity. The deprivation by the said mentioned public servants must be based on simple neglect, like, for example, prison officials losing your personal property of an inmate. Note the critic of this, boy, I tell you, my eyes are so bad today. Optimistic approach believe that it would be more consistent with the framers' intent and more sensible to simply require a showing of a government's deprivation that caused a serious injury. Because remember, the Supreme Court ruled that you can be a crime victim, but unless you're the corpus delicti, there is no crime. So you have to prove it. So the statement relating to question 1, a violation of due process, and you can write your thing in there. It'll automatically, as you're typing, it will automatically go down, and the line numbers will change and everything. So you'll never lose track of where you're at. It's a very simple form to use. Like I said, it's on my webpage, Davidlee Buess. It's on Tax Fraud in America. It's on New Oregon Trackers. Let's see. There's a couple others I put it on. I put it on DC Clothesline. Noticed the White House on it. So it's out there as public knowledge, and people can go in there and read it over. I understand Ed was passing it around earlier today, and so it's getting passed around the internet, and people are giving it a thumbs up. So I appreciate that too, because there was a lot of hard work went into making this document, and we put it out there so everybody could use it who's ever been to court. The one thing I forgot to put in here, and I just now remembered it as I'm talking to you, is of law fraud that they do in court on you. The gold fringe flag, and the fact that falls the courts under military regulation. So you cannot go to a state court flying a gold fringe flag and not be considered that to be military jurisdiction. So, and that falls under Dwight David Eisenhower's executive order.
Hey, we can barely hear you.
I'm right here next to my...
there you go. We can hear you better.
Okay. I'm right here next to the phone. So, anyway, that basically covers the document. So if you feel like you've had due process violations, or you know of anybody who's been arrested and improperly booked before they were taken to an administrative hearing, this is the document for you. You will need this. I did have one gentleman ask me that if they issue you a ticket, what should I do? I said, well, go first of all, take it down to the state treasurer and cash it. Because what they're doing is they're creating a financial document, and before they can collect on it, you want to collect on it. So he was amazed that you could do that. So anyway, that's one reason why when you get a ticket, they want to take you to court right away, so that you don't have the opportunity to talk to somebody and find out that, oh, I can cash this in.
Mm-hmm.
So when you go to court, don't ever sign any documents, because they're trying to get you to confess that you committed a crime. Excuse me, you have a right to travel. And unless you really violate some major law, and do personal injury to somebody, they don't have the right to stop you. So if you do get stopped by a police officer, you just ask him very plain and simple, what is your emergency, and what can I help you with? And then he will know that you know that you have the right to travel, and he had better leave you alone, or he can be taken up, sued in his personal, private, and public capacity. So you always want to remember that. Those three things that the elected and public servants can be sued in their private, public, and personal capacities for violating your rights as a bloodline American. So, that being said, right now, until I find the other thing I'd like to talk about...
okay, go ahead and find it. I want to bring up a couple points.
Okay.
The one thing is, artificial identities cannot take oath. So when elected and public servants take an oath, they're taking it with their liability. And we've got that in this instrument. So this way you guys, we've put a lot of stuff in this instrument, so that way you know that they have to take an oath. This way the honor structure is there that they have to go by. And if you look at 8 USC code 1401, this is where everybody goes, I'm a national citizen, or I'm a national. Nationals and citizens of the United States at birth are declared enemies to we the people, Executive Order 2040. This goes under the Trading with the Enemy Act of December 6, 1917. This is part of the bankruptcy where they did the birth certificate bonds at $630,000. And that's what we're supposed to have received from the bankruptcy of the British government to we the people. as part of the structure of House Resolution 192. And I believe that code, I just had it on my mind and it escaped me, Public Law 73, Section 10. So that's the whole point, is looking this stuff up, putting it in chronicle order, serving your servants so this way they know that you know that you know they know. And I always get this one that, you know, and I've heard this from cops, we weren't trained that way. Well, I went through some of the similarity deals of that myself. And yes, they are trained. They know what the Constitution is, but they know that they're road pirates and they're out to make money off of the tickets and going to court because that's how they get their income. Because the average cop today, and everybody goes, oh, they don't make that much. They make 80, some of them can make up to $180,000 a year. And then when they commit theft on your property, and then they try to sit there and take your property to court, well, you can go in and defend your property and claim it. They don't like that. You know, you do have these rights, and this is the point that they don't want you to comprehend your rights. They want you to turn everything into a privilege because they wanted to monitor your accounts. They want to monitor your life. And the main thing is always remember that, and I've proven this, the courts are run by the court of the Vatican. And if you go to court, people go to court for a lot of stupid stuff when it really comes down to it, and it's religious related. So don't get confused with your religion compared to the Constitution. Constitution gives you a right to your religious belief. Okay, your religious belief. That might be not mine. That might not be Dave's. That might be Tom, Dick, and Harry's down the street's belief. We all have our rights to belief, so that way there's no personal harm or body damage to another human or animal. And animals, when you get kidnapped and held for ransom, Title 7, 136, man is animal. So they caged an animal. That's, what is that? There's a whole bunch of crimes on that one. Cruelty to animals and, you know, all that stuff applies to that. All of it applies. So when you think that you don't have arguments back and forth on this stuff, yes, you do. Okay, but the whole point is putting it in order. Now, under 5 USC 3331, oath of office. And that means judges and everybody has to have it filed. We've got audio tape where we've got district attorneys and judges in court admitting they don't have a bond, they don't have seals. Well, they're committing fraud. Okay, and we're filing on that, and I've filed that on my county. It's part of the reason why I'm getting ready to do the recall, because the Judicial Fitness Committee and the state attorney general in my state has been covering up for them under the governor. And our governor, Kate Brown, even came out and said any public servants who turns in any immigrant will lose their job immediately, mandatory. And that is ridiculous, because we have a law, Federal Immigration and Natural Act, Section 8 USC 1324. You know, parenthesis A1, parenthesis large A, parenthesis IV, parenthesis B, and then parenthesis 3 I's. And that technically goes all the way back to 1775. And this is where people don't get it. If you house an alien, if you aid and abet an alien, an illegal on this land, all right, you can go to prison. If you hire illegals in this country, that is a crime. So, and, you know, even tax fraud, you know, everybody goes, oh, they're paying Social Security, so that's going into our deal. You know, well, that's the point. They have to pay Social Security. They have to pay income tax. Lawful bloodline Americans are exempt, and we'll have those forms shortly up, so this way you guys can get the forms, so this way you guys have the actual proof of what we're saying, so this way you realize we're not talking hearsay. And I will get into this. Merely being born within the territory boundaries of the United States of America, of course it used to be for America until after the Civil War, does not make such an inhabitant a citizen of the United States. Okay? And even goes into the Supreme Court, an American Indian are original to this land. Subject jurisdiction, the 14th Amendment, that Elk versus Winkins, NEB 1884. This was right after the Fourth Amendment was passed. And then the Fourth Amendment, when they did the Fourth Amendment, says every colored man or woman, all right, are free, period, of everything. You know, and everybody goes, oh, well, the 14th Amendment made us citizens. Well, if you are a citizen, that means you are legal, you're not lawful. And if you are a citizen, you're not claiming your bloodline. Remember, your bloodline means a lot. Doesn't matter what part of the world you come from, because even in your own country, from a foreign country, bloodline has standing. I mean, look at the Rockefellers. You know, I mean, poor Dave, 101 years old, finally died after nine open heart surgeries, replacing his heart 9 times. And that's the beauty of that one. And now we need a few more to go because they're losing their control. But the only way that they're going to lose their control is by we filing these instruments proving that we have rights to this country, this soil. That's why they're doing DNA screenings and stuff to know who's lawful and legal. These men and women truly do know the difference. Trust me, I've talked to many senators and congressmen, aides and stuff. Oh, yeah, we know it, Ed, we know it. But the people don't. I sat there 3-4 years ago at the Capitol. I actually had them admit to property taxes is voluntary to lawful Americans. And, of course, Ed, we all know that here. And I'm like, well, yeah, but the people in the state don't know it. Well, and when representative says, well, that's their responsibility to look it up. In a sense, he's got a point, but to me, that should be stuff that's actually taught in the schools. All right? I don't want to see the police, the fire department days go on where they have the kids going out and then talking to the cops and the firemen and wasting that. They should be in the classrooms educating themselves. Field trips are good to go out to the beach and learn what it is out there and what's going on. But otherwise, we need to get the children to be educated. We need to get the structure. And people know the way I feel about the religious structure of the Bible. I do not have a problem with silent prayer in school. I mean, I enjoyed that when I went to school. I had the rights to do my own prayer. Okay, it doesn't matter what religion I do, but they had a time where they would allow you, they were taking 10 minutes, and you do your prayer for the day. I don't have a problem with that. Okay, but when you're trying to force people into a religion, that's where I have the problem. Because your religion is definitely different than mine. Your belief, more than likely, is definitely different than mine. So that's why the Constitution is to protect each equal right, so long as that we don't do personal damage to one another or property damage. And like I said, the one thing is there's a couple of really good sites called road pirates on the internet. You get a chance, look them up. It's like the Supreme Court has stated more than one time, police have no duty to protect the citizens. And if you actually read the structure of the police, they're actually supposed to monitor elected and public servants, and when they violate their oath of office, they're supposed to arrest them for it. That's the original structure. I mean, when I grew up, I remember people that didn't pay their water and electricity bills and stuff like this. It was written off. And then all of a sudden, after the 1980s, they started kidnapping and holding people in and then waiting for the elderly people to die that already had their system set up. So they were trying to take their land from their inheritors. So when you set up your properties and stuff, put it as a living trust and set it up so that way, and we'll have a template up here in the next couple of weeks on that too. but put it up so that way your property goes to the lawful bloodline of your heirs, who you want to be in your structure, who you want to have your assets to be given to. That is your decision. That is nobody else's decision but yours. And don't give it to the church, because the church has already done enough damage to the people in this country. You know, they've really done a lot of damage to the people of this country, the churches have. And that's one thing that gets to me. And the other point that we like to bring up every week, too, is Title 42, 408, Section A8. Okay, that says that if you give your Social Security number out to anybody, including an employer, that could be, you could be in prison for not more than 5 years, or a penalty fine or whatever they want to put on you. That's opened. So, you know, your Social Security number, Social Security is a private contract, not a government agency. March 7th, was it March 3rd, 1997, William Jefferson Clinton signed over the employer's contribution of Social Security to the Queen of England. And then, October last year, October, I think it was 16th, the Queen of England came out in the New Yorker and the New York Times said, well, if America, this is why I have fun with all these people who say that America is still a British colony. Well, the Queen of England came out and publicly stated that if the American people wanted to come back to the British colonies, we'll be more than happy to put the British rule back over you. Well, if the Queen of England comes out and says that they don't have control over us, and I know that for a fact because I publicized the printed Constitution that was stamped by the Queen of England in 1993, and I publicized it in the newspaper, so this way, you know, I wanted to see if anybody had a conflict, anybody was going to speak against it. Nobody did. Not one man or woman spoke against it when it was publicized in the mainstream media. So, you know, when we get people that say this stuff, usually they're attorneys, usually there are people in the system, because they know if they don't have a certain quota of people in the system, they're unemployed. And that's the one thing we want. We want to make sure that all these immigrant employees working for the government, we the people, and remember, when you talk government, please say that we have the government is we the people. We have elected and public servants. We start drilling that in people's mind that they have elected and public service and quit talking the government is out for them. You know, the government ain't out there to protect you. They're not there for you. You know, and we all know that. So, you know, talk about how we have elected and public servants. You know, and then for those on tax structure, if you go to the internet on YouTube, this is exhibit number 5.051. Remember, this is a congressional hearing entered into record. Former IRS Commissioner Steve Miller stated income tax is voluntary. That's federal and state. You'll always hear how elected and public servants say, well, I pay my income tax, so you should pay yours. Well, by law, because of the 1933 March 9th Banking Act, because of the fictitious dollar that was created, by law, they have to pay taxes for that employment possibility. And if you go back in history until that time, those elected and public servants that we had after the Civil War were not paid in notes. They were paid in gold or silver. They didn't get paid in notes. That didn't start really happening until the late 30s and 1940s, when they finally got it totally together there. Because prior to that, they were paid in gold and silver, and that's historical record as well. So when you call yourself a citizen, be careful when you call yourself a national, because even Congressman Trent Gowdy came out and said, if you are a national, he said this on National News and Committee, if you are a national, you are one of the ones that we're going to deport first. So I'm not a national. I own me. I filed my paperwork. Nobody's disputed me. It's filed in the state records. It's filed in the county commissioners. been publicly hung up. It's been filed in the museums across the state of Oregon. And you can always file stuff in museums. It's a good point to do it because museums can only carry lawful records. They cannot be legal structure. That's why they are museums of fact. So, Dave, did you find your thought?
Yes, I did.
All right, pass the floor.
I want you people to read the Fair Trade Act and the Unfair Trade Acts because there is a volume of information relating to your contract with not only government, but the businesses that you do business with. And trust me, you will be amazed at what you find in these agreements. The other thing was Ed brought up the Title 42, 408A8. I did file a charge against the Social Security Administration for using my Social Security number on documents without my knowledge and permission.
Mm-hmm. We both did.
That has been filed both with the IRS and the service. So one way or another, I will expect the former acting commissioner of the Social Security Administration to be arrested and jailed. I told him to get the grand jury. I want a grand jury indictment on her, and that she be. And I sent him the copies of the documentation where not only did she steal my identity, she used the Social Security number on the same instrument. So, and she's using it without court orders, any conviction, no due process of law. That's what triggered this document that I wrote. So, you know, when you can give them hardcore evidence of where they are stealing from you under false and fraudulent pretense, this is actually falls under embezzlement. Because if you don't have a grand jury indictment, you were arrested, you went to court, you actually went through the procedure, okay, how can they state they have a claim against you? They don't. And so when the IRS pulled their crap on me, I showed them some 60 key case rulings of the Supreme Court that are not found in the IRS code. Well, they ignored those. So then I created a true bill and invoice when they didn't answer my affidavit. So I've been billing and invoicing them since 2005. They now, as of this month, owe me $9.6 billion. And I told Mr. Trump in a letter to him that I expected in an affidavit. I always do it according to the book. Presented Mr. Trump with an affidavit. And I said, you will issue an executive order because I cannot file this into any court of law. I've been ordered not to do that by a judge. So I can't file in federal or state court anything. So you, as the President of the United States, must issue an executive order to force the payment of this true bill and invoice that I've been given to the IRS since 2005. And I've sent them notice of dishonor, all kind of stuff, and they just ignore everything you send to them.
Mm-hmm.
So have unregistered foreign agents trying to screw the American people, and then thanks to Michelle, we uncovered a 515 form, which you have to call the IRS because that form tells the IRS, oh, you're not taxable.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet. Just wonderful. So that's deliberate withholding information to cause one to his detriment, which is the definition of fraud. So by them failing to send us 1040X forms to begin with, plus this 515 form, that's pretty much a fraud to me.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see how this thing plays out. Been getting a lot of weird phone calls too, unlisted names and numbers, and I finally got fed up with it. I changed my answering machine. It said, if you do not have a proper name associated with this telephone number, I will not answer it. And so it just, I said, you do, however, have the right to leave me a message. I never get a message. Never get a message. So, but the point's getting across to these people that, hey, now I did get a phone call today that had a name on it. It just said name and the phone number, but I still didn't answer it. I mean, you got to have your bloodline name. So, I mean, it's nuts, just plain nuts. But anyway, the Fair Trade and Unfair Trade Agreements Acts, you really need to get in and read those because there's a wealth of information in there relating to what your rights are under contract, and so you'll be able to play with that one, and also use it in any documentation that you want to do on your own. So I did have one gentleman call me today. He is making an affidavit up to claim not only his bloodline but his wife and their child, their bloodline. And so I looked his document over today, and he did a really, really good job on it. But he's gonna post this to the American people. He said when they gave him their 20 days, he would post it on our wall so everybody could see how he did it. So there's one gentleman who's standing up for his family and the bloodline. So I'm anxious to see that get posted, and let's see how many others will follow his lead. I did tell him that he did not have to have it notarized. His blood signature was quite acceptable in any court of law. So,
that's why they do DNA samples.
It doesn't matter if it's still a bloodline signature. He's a live person.
That's right. And it doesn't matter if it matters if he's legal as well. If he's illegal, he has no rights in this country. Because, like it says, the federal law says it is illegal for nonprofits or religious organizations to knowingly assist an employer to violate employment sanctions regarding claims that convicts requires them to assist aliens. Harboring and aiding an illegal alien is not protected by the First Amendment and is a felony established to commercial enterprises for the purpose of invading any purpose of federal immigration law. Violations may be fined or imprisoned up to 5 years. And that means if you harbor them or anything. And now we got a couple federal senators that are from Mexico, and they have publicly admitted that their parents are here illegally, and he's not even legal to be in this country, or a congressman. Haven't got to write that one up yet, but we do plan on getting that one written up and get that served, because these people need to start being indicted for what they have done to us, because they are taking our resources for themselves. And most of the immigrants' employers, I think it was $9 billion sent back to Mexico from immigrants that are working in this country, and most of them are on welfare, and they live in housing paid by you, the taxpayer, so they're sending their employment checks down to Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
Wake up, folks. They're draining the country, just like the attorneys are doing and England is doing.
Hey, Ed, I'm on the call.
Yeah, go ahead, Michelle. Did you want to throw some questions in on the form that you went through?
Yeah, well, it's in reference actually to what you guys have been talking about on the call. I'm actually was sitting on my desk and I was addressing my affidavit of truth, public record on criminal action complaint, and David sent me HR 3332, which is a documentation regarding violations of due process. Excuse me. So I added that in my heading because of everything that I have outlined as far as us being victims regarding the fraudulent foreclosures, and of course what you had just spoken about regarding our taxes, that we're not supposed to be paying taxes. So because I had put all that in my documentation, I added that heading, some of the verbiage that David had shared me regarding the violations of due process. Now, because I added it, this pertains to Congress, and the HR 3332 has to do with those that are representatives as to in the House of Representatives at the White House. And what do? They pass laws. Now, since Trump's been in office, somebody came forth and they are addressing some of the issues pertaining to law enforcement and agencies, including the judicial branches of that part of the government, as to our branches. So they're anyway, they got something going on that right now, and it's pending. So I guess they're doing an investigation. So that's good news. So anyway, I added that info in my documentation. Now, something besides what David just brought to our attention as to what he was just telling you a second ago, I want to add to that the Penal Code under Title 7, which is offenses against property, which is something else that David had shared with me, and it's 5 pages long. So if you just Google in your search bar Penal Code Title 7, Chapter 31, all this will come up as to, which is 5 pages long. Well, believe it or not, those are laws and statutes that apply to us. And it's awesome. It's 5 pages long, and I just want to read one. I don't have the whole thing, so I'm missing some of the very ending of the sentence. But this is what it says so far, what I have on that I can read to you. And I'll give you an example. It says under Section 31.01, which is 1, which is deception means, that's what the 1 means, the number 1. And then it's a capital A that would go with it, of course. It says creating or confirming the words or conduct a false impression of the law or fact that it is likely to affect the judgment of another in the transaction. And there's a little bit more that goes with that. Unfortunately, I don't have the whole sentence, so I can't go into the next paragraph. But that just gives you an idea. That also falls under trickery, which is Title 18.1001. So there are many good laws on the books that are there and that were put there for our protection. Excuse me. But like they say, ignorance in the law will get you nowhere. So if you're ignorant to the law and don't want to learn the laws and learn where you stand pertaining to your rights, well, then you got what's coming to you. That's why that statement is in there. Another one that I like is about steal, and that's under the same code, but it's a 7. Steal means to acquire property or services by theft, Well, I don't know about you, but that sure falls under my category, and it also falls under identity theft. Remember, identity theft can only be applied if you have evidence to prove that you are a victim to a crime. A crime has to be committed pertaining to you making a claim under identity theft. Well, I don't know about you, but I just gave you some of the biggest answers right then and there, what you need to be doing. So what you need to be doing is addressing an affidavit of truth, public record, criminal action complaint under violations of due process. and now that if you Google search that HR 3332, you'll which I did, by the way, and of course that pertains to in the House of Representatives. Well, who's our representatives, guys? It's our state senators and our governors. So you can actually address your document as you're going to make a claim with the police department, including the courts, and guess what? You can CC it and you can put the verbiage in there, because remember, if you can prove that they violated the law, meaning those that stole your identity or those that are addressing the fraudulent claim, well, guess what? Now you can bring Congress into it. You can actually notify Congress of the violations that were brought upon you. So I put that information in this document, the one that I'm citing, and they're going to shit when they see it, because they're going to know, oh my God, not only is she addressing the House of Representatives in this document, and she's got it beautifully done, and so I don't know what to tell you. You guys need to get off your butt.
That 322 ordinance is dealing with police brutality.
Yes, that's exactly what it pertains to.
That is also in my the document I wrote for the violation of due process.
Oh,
so
good for you.
This is why the document was keylogger hacked. They took out the part that Congress wrote this.
Well,
lines missing. So I had to rewrite the document and refile it today.
Wow.
So, but yeah, they also took out where to serve it, the Secret Service, for identity theft and counterfeiting debt. So I lowered the boom on them. Go ahead, Michelle.
Well, the more of us that get together and the more of us that actually do our paperwork, you don't have to be a genius to sit on your computer and draft up a thing. I mean, you know, if some people need help, then they need to turn to their friends to help them with their verbiage or whatever. But you don't have to be a genius to look up. And by the way, you just Google, if you Google in your search bar, public record, court record forms, you can use those forms as a guidance to help you draft up your documents. As to your verbiage, your words. And of course, when you start looking up these codes that I gave you, I have to tell you, the penal code, that one did it. When you sent me that information, David, on the penal under Title 7, the penal code, that right there, it says it all. It's 5 pages long. And if you can't use that documentation, which is nicely done up, by the way, very beautifully, I mean, it's easy to understand. If you can't take that information and run with it, well, then you guys are wasting our time on this call, because it doesn't take a genius to figure that out and to apply that information to your paperwork. Remember, a crime is a crime. And
that's true. That's true.
You guys, I mean, we can't be repeating ourselves over and over and over on these
We do.
well,
not the issue. It's all about education, so people may not get it this week. They'll catch on it next week. So
well, that's true.
That's right.
There's a lot of things that we're repeating ourselves on.
I
and
know.
What we're doing is we're stealing valuable time to move forward on other things that we should be addressing to help those that really do want to do something about
They are doing that, yeah. Anyhow, I want to bring one thing to everybody's attention. If you could buy aloe vera at Walmart, aloe vera gels or liquids, it's not aloe vera. Read it. It's a chemical implant.
Oh, my word. Are you kidding me?
No. That's the one thing I miss. I used to have one of the biggest aloe vera plants, and when I was moving, a friend of mine wanted it, and I gave it to her, which I regret doing it because it was 6.5 feet wide, circular. Wow. It was 4 feet high, and it was thick, because I had real aloe vera on the always at hand. And so she wanted it when I was moving, and I didn't want to give it up, but I gave it up to her, and after 4 months it died, and I was disturbed.
Wow. Well, I can send you. We have all kinds of those around here in Florida, so I'll have to find one then and send it to you.
Well, yeah. I mean, I got herbs growing. I got rosemary that's growing out in a big tree now.
Oh, that's good.
But anyhow, Michelle, let's open it up for anybody who's got any thoughts or questions.
Sure, absolutely. I just wanted to make a statement. The trade agreements, what David brought to the people's attention, that's awesome too. Okay, go ahead and open up the floor.
Yeah, let's go ahead. Anybody got any questions at this point? Yeah, the floor is yours. Go ahead.
Santa Claus in Cincinnati.
Hey, good to hear you, Santa.
Hey, well, one thing I'd like to ask Michelle, you pretty much put the government out of business, Michelle. What else would you want to talk about if you weren't repeating yourself?
Thank you. Good point, Santa.
Yeah,
that was good.
I mean, what more do we? They've been exposed.
Well, I'll tell you what, Santa.
We did not put the government out of business. We put our public elected and appointed public servants out of business.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I should have said de facto or something like that. Yeah.
Those that are committing the crime.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you what, Santa. I'm meeting with Look, I'm talking about the Attorney General now. I have them so scared. Are you ready for this? They called. I called them to find out what was going on. Right? They're bringing in an attorney into to help them with the case. And so I said to the investigator, I said, "Oh, I am so excited to see that attorney. I can't wait to get with him or her, whoever it's going to be, because I can't wait to nitpick and throw laws at them that they're violating." And that's how I left it. So I'm getting with them, and of course, now keep in mind, they don't know what I got up my sleeve. So I have this beautiful documentation done up, things that Ed has been going over, and also that he mentioned on the call just today regarding the 1884, what was that, Ed?
The Immigration Act. It tells you if you're lawful or legal, yes.
Yeah. So I have that I have that document. I mean, I have everything. I didn't leave anything unturned. So when they get my document, now keep in mind, this is I'm drafting it up. Not only am I putting the police department and the sheriff's department on notice as to them violating my rights and as to what David just was talking about on the call, but I'm also informing them that this is going to be going to the White House. This is going to be going to our House of Representatives, this document. It's their bill,
Michelle,
and yeah.
Before I forget, can I rather than call it violating your rights, refer to it as a willful criminal trespass.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, in my documentation. Oh, that's exactly right. That is how I have it worded, because it's a violation of my due process rights.
But that's what you need to say. That's what he was saying.
Well, that's true. I should say it that way. That's true. So
violating your rights, isn't necessarily indicating a crime.
That's true.
Yes, it is, but willful criminal trespass is, in my understanding of the way to put it.
Well, yeah, you are correct on that, and I do have that in my documentation. I have that they have trespassed upon my property, and boy, did they ever.
Yeah, but you want to call it criminal and willful.
That's a good point.
Honestly,
yeah, I'll tell you what I went through today. I had the natural gas company. The guy comes walking on my land and goes in the back of my backyard, starts looking around. And I come out, and I'm like, what the hell are you doing on my land? Well, I'm natural gas, and we're looking for gas lines, and da-da-da-da-da. And I said, I don't give a shit what the freak you're looking for. I don't have an account with you. Get the hell off my land before I break your legs. And he goes, well, you're threatening me. I said, no, I'm telling you what I'm going to do. You're trespassing on my land. You have no authority. Well, I have rights because I'm natural gas. I said, no, you don't, because we don't have a contract. You don't have an easement right to walk on my land. It's that simple. And he's like, well, I'm off your land now. And I'm like, well, dude, don't come back.
Yeah.
And so I called the supervisors up and I bitched to them. Because you don't have a right to come on my land without notifying me first. It's that simple. And if I'm going to trespass on somebody's land, I yell when I'm going on that land to let them know I'm coming on their land, possibly illegally. And I don't like to use the word illegally. Trespassing, that might be offending their rights of their land. But at least I let them know I'm coming and what I'm doing.
The good one that I like is Title 7, which is the Penal Code. Title 7, which is offenses against property of Chapter 31, which it comes right out and says it is theft. Theft is theft. You can't say it any better than that. Another one, too, you want to look up is Section 3-416, and that has to do with the Uniform Commercial Code, UCC, Article 3, which is the negotiable instruments. That is another one you want to look up. I'm telling you, it has awesome information in there. It explains to you what your rights are and how they have violated these laws pertaining to every transaction with the bank. Once you get this information and you sit down and you apply and you put your documentation together as to your instrument, as to what you're going to do with it, I'm going to tell you right now, when you file that documentation into court, the judge is not going to mess with you. No judge is going to break the law. They're not that stupid.
Yeah, they're sure not going to put it on record.
No.
UCC what?
It's 3-416, and it's UCC Article 3, which is the negotiable instrument, and that falls under which is Part 4, and that falls under Section 3-416, which has to do with transfers of warranties, which has to do with the negotiable instrument as to your all these notes and the promissory note and the instrument regarding that. And I can tell you right now, every bank pertaining to that transaction has broke the law. And let me explain.
Knowingly.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, with intent, knowingly and with intent, absolutely. Now, for those that are on the call, I'll explain. I'll kind of give you an example what that falls under. What I just gave you, what you're going to look up and read. Think of it this way: when you I'm going to use your bank account because your bank account it makes it easy for people to grasp what this means. You have a checking account and a savings account, correct? Now, when you have a checking account and a savings account, what do you have that applies to it? You have a routing number, and then you have your second number, which pertains to your instrument as to your identity. The routing number, pardon me? The routing number.
The routing number for the bank routing, and then the other one is your bank account.
Correct. It's your bank account, and your bank account is your instrument. Why is it an instrument? Because in order for you to have a bank account, you have to have money in the bank. So the money is the instrument. Now, your check. Go ahead. Your check is what's called the note.
Yeah, this is producer Toasted. I am observing the free color conference is acting up again and blocking calls. So if you're out there getting a busy signal, I urge you to keep trying. It's Toasted.
Yeah, we're working on trying to come up with the fees for an 800 number too that would help out.
Yeah, I can tell you we're having problems with the call because since I've been on the call, they've been trying to disconnect me. But so far I've been on the call. So your check is what's called the note. Your signature on your check now becomes an instrument. If your signature was not on the note as to your check, that means the bank cannot cash it or do anything with the note because your signature has to be on it, informing the bank of that transaction. Now, when you go to the bank, or you do it through your computer, when you go to the bank and you do a transaction, the bank gives you an acknowledgement, which is that little piece of paper, which is that little white slip. That is what's called the counter signature because it's got the bank's name on it, acknowledging that they received that money from you as to your transaction. It's the same scenario when you took out a mortgage. The only difference is the bank forgot that part of it. So what they did is they received a promissory note from you with your signature on it, but guess what? That does not authorize the bank to do anything with the promissory note. Why? Because the bank can't do transfers pertaining to a loan unless you give the bank what? Your routing number. Correct. Your routing number and permission as to the rest of the information that goes with your routing number, which is what? The number pertaining to your checking account or savings account. That's the part where they screwed up. So that's how easy it was to figure it out. Now, when you look up those codes, the code that I just told you about transfers under warranties, which falls under Section 3-416, guess what? You won't believe the information that is there because it nicely explains about the endorsement. And remember what I was telling you about the endorsement? You have to have a copy of that receipt from the bank stating that you had received that money into your bank account. None of us received any money in our bank account from the bank as they were claiming. All they gave you was a piece of paper that had no value to it. And what was that piece of paper called? The note. Now attorneys are going to argue with you. They'll say, well, the promissory note and the note has just as much standing as the instrument. No, that is not true. The instrument and the promissory note have to be attached, just like your signature has to be on your check. And what's that called again? The note. And if your signature is not with the rest of the instrument as to the agreement pertaining to the transfer on the money with the bank, they can't do piddly squat. Now, the bank is called a trustee. You need to look up what a trustee means. All a trustee is a holder of your note pertaining to the money. That's all they are. They can't do anything with you. They cannot sue you whatsoever. Now, when a bank does a transfer from one bank to another bank, it's the same scenario. The bank cannot loan money to another bank. Why? Because they needed your routing number and your permission, which was your signature and your routing number to your own bank account. And it has to be from the same bank going to the same bank, unless, of course, you give authorization to do a transfer from a different bank to a different bank. And I know that for a fact because in order for me to transfer my money from one bank to a different bank, I had to give the new bank my routing number and regular number, and the only way they would do that is if I gave them a void check. Otherwise, I would have been out of luck. So banks do not lend money to other banks. That's BS bullcrap. They lend money to whom? The people. Whoever's taken who's ever doing the transaction from one bank to another, or to that bank into your own personal savings account or checking account. They
can't, because the only one who can authorize that is the Treasury.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. And that's another thing. Now, the Treasury. Yeah, that's another one. Yeah, the Treasury now, guess where the Treasury plays into this? The Treasury is the one who takes the funds now regarding your taxes. So the Treasury now, what the Treasury does is they take the funds that they accumulate over time pertaining to your taxes. And guess who they give that tax money to? The Revenue Service. Yep, you heard me right. That's how that plays.
To the Bureau of Public Debt.
What was that, David?
I'm saying, why are they not giving it to the Bureau of Public Debt?
Because they're stealing.
Those of you who want to pay income taxes, make your check out to the Bureau of Public Debt.
Yeah. Oh, and I want to bring something too, because about the phone calls. Today I was looking in my bank account to check, and by the way, I do this on a daily basis because of the fraud that's going on. Well, lo and behold, there was a fraudulent withdraw from my checking account, and it's not the first time. And are you ready for this? It's a United Consumers Credit Union doing it. Now, the United States Consumers Credit Union is a sub-branch for other agencies that have businesses. For instance, like, selling you magazines and that kind of crap. So, yeah. So the United States Consumers Credit Union, somehow, somebody through them withdrew money from my checkings account. So I have that sweet number, and I'm taking that with me now when I this coming Wednesday to put them on notice on that, and I'm going to be filing a identity theft claim on that number. But what I'm trying to say now is they're going through the United States Consumers Credit Union to commit their fraud through another business corporation. So there, I wanted to bring that to your attention because you might want to start looking in your checking accounts, etc. And you want to also, now for those that are facing foreclosure or have even lost their home, guess what? You're going to be able to get your home back now because of the information I just gave you. Because what are you going to use? You're going to use all those sweet little codes that's nicely spelled out for you, and you can get your house back. And what are you going to claim? Identity theft. And that you're and not only identity theft, but you're going to claim violations of your due process rights, because what did the judges do and the attorneys do? Because it's all part of it, see? It's all part of that scam. Oh, and I want you to, when you do your paperwork up, you also want to state, with personage comes barratry. Make sure you put that in there on your documentation, because that's and look it up. That's a beautiful way of letting them know that you're going to hold the Bar Association accountable for all those fraudulent claims that they committed upon you. Now, usually when you file that type of a complaint under barratry as to personage, most of the time the attorneys they lose their license. That's it. They don't do any time. They don't, and of course now, depending on the damage, you will get compensated. Now I can tell you this, that attorneys only take out, as far as damages go, towards their insurance, which is the bond, is only $250,000. So anything over $250,000, you will not get the big lump sum of money up front. What the Bar Association does is they break it down in payments. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention too, in case you're not aware of it.
Well, doesn't that fall under False Claims Act?
No, what they do, well, I don't know, what do you mean? In what way?
Well, I mean, they're stating that they have the right to do this. That's a false claim.
Be more specific, David. I'm a little lost. You mean as I'm a little confused. As give me more detail.
Any of the things that you mentioned that's happening by the banks are false claims.
Oh yeah, dealing with the banks. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I meant with the Bar Association. In other words, you're bringing the attorneys into this, which is separate from the banks, but you're applying it in your in the same document or documentation. I should say. So when you are, so that's why I'm saying you can bring you can go after the attorney who represented you, because remember, a lot of people, they had hired an attorney or lawyers to represent them, and that attorney and lawyer knew that they were violating the law already, because why? They knew that they were violating Section 3-416, which had to do with transfer under warranties, and of course with the other violations that we just mentioned, which is Title 7, Chapter 31, under title, regarding, they can't do that. That falls under theft, which is land theft, which is the first. Now it depends on the, as far as the degrees go, for like the first degree, second degree, third degree, how that plays out, it has to do with how much money plays into that. So anything that's over $300,000 is a first degree. If it's less than $300,000, then it's a second degree, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's how that plays as to damages rendered. So most of us, I know that, especially with dealing with mortgages, most people, their mortgages, these people that lost their homes, I'm sure that their mortgages was between the 200 or 300 range. So that would be that would definitely be a second or first degree. Anything less than that, it would be it changes as the regarding the amount on the money. But the reason why I mentioned the lawyers and the attorneys is because you have the evidence now, and you will have the evidence, because remember, evidence speaks louder than words, and it's no longer hearsay. See, the reason why
Michelle, don't forget to remind them to put their evidence in immediately before going to court.
Yes, that's a good point, Ed. What I do, here's what I do. When I'm listing my documentation, like I'm doing like tonight, I've been working on my documentation. What I do at the very end of my document, I do a little summary of on the facts. Now, when I say facts or fact without the S, when I am addressing my paperwork, for instance, and I know that I have evidence, hardcore evidence to prove what I'm claiming, I will call that a fact. Or if I'm citing a statute or a law that is dealing with what I'm talking about, I will call that a fact, because I'm referencing off of that law. In other words, it's not me talking, it's the law talking. So whenever you have a true fact, you can say fact or facts if you're addressing more than one fact. When I outline my paperwork, I will, and as I'm going along, and it pertains to documentation as to evidence, I will say in my paragraph, evidence attached, or I will make some type of a reference that this is, in parentheses, evidence. Or sometimes what I'll do when I'm outlining my paperwork, I'll say list of evidence. And then I list all my evidence on that one piece of paper, so that way I don't have to shuffle around 15 different papers to find out, oh, hang on a minute, Judge, I got to go look at this other paper. It's all right there in front of me. So I do a little summary, either towards the front of at the beginning of my complaint, or I do it at the end. Either way, I make myself a little summary, so that way I can say this is what has been addressed in my paperwork that I am submitting to the court or to the sheriff's department or the police department. And I'm going to tell you right now, David brought up some valuable things tonight on the call, including Ed, and that is the trade commissions, the Fair Trade Commissions Act. Make sure you apply that in your paperwork. Now, you're going to have to look that stuff up. And when you look it up, we're giving you everything, just like what I'm doing. We're giving you everything that there's no way, I'm telling you right now, there is no way the police department or the sheriff's department or a judge is going to go against you. Now, the only way that they'll go against you is if, of course, and of course you have to know what to do, is they might not allow you to put your evidence upon the court, or they might not even respond to you. If they don't respond to you, well, guess what? Now you got another claim. And then what you do is you have to...
Well, I was going to say file the clean hands document.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm glad you're... Well, I'll jump back on that. I'm glad you made that statement. So you have to file a notice of default, that they aren't responding to your claims. Now, remember, because of the HR 3332, if they don't do their job, Well, that means you can take your beautiful documentation that you put together and all your evidence, right? Of course, now your actual evidence you never give to anybody. That you keep that, but you can give a reference of what you have as evidence, right? And what are you going to do? You're going to send that beautiful documentation to the president. That's how that works. Certified letter, return receipt to the president. Because why? Because what are you doing? You're addressing your paperwork, and you're putting in your paperwork in the House of Representatives, which is the bill pertaining to your rights regarding the police department and the sheriff's department and da-da-da-da-da. Now, Ed brought up a good point. When you're writing out your things, you want to say under clean hands. Now, for instance, I'll give you an example. Now comes with clean hands and states in and for the record that the statements herein made are of my own free will, and that I have reviewed the information herein, and that states in it are true and accurate to the happenings related to me in this matter. Now, you use the same scenario pertaining to them. They're what? They're bringing what against you? Under dirty hands or unclean hands. So you're saying with clean hands pertaining to you, but they're not clean. Your enemies aren't clean. So what are you going to say? Under dirty hands. Under dirty hands, John Doe committed this against me. Da-da-da-da-da. So you use those, so that's what Ed meant by unclean hands, and that's how you would use your verbiage in your in your paperwork. Oh, another thing. If you have a mortgage, now these are for people that have a mortgage, please do me a favor, in your Google search bar, type in court record forms and look for the title. You'll see it in the list, and it's called Affidavit of Ownership. Now, you cannot print that form out, because what happens is when you go to print it out, it's rigged, and they're going to forward it over to another website where they're going to try to get you to pay for the document, or you're going to get the old scenario where these attorneys are jumping up at you and they want you to leave a message with them because they want your money, da-da-da-da-da, right? They think they want to help you. Just ignore all that stuff, but lift up the page, fill it out, and then what you're going to have to do is manually go to your other program and type it up, and then print it out. Now you can electronically fill in the blanks and then type it out, and then or just look at the form and take that verbiage off of what you're seeing and fill in the blanks and do your document up that way. Now, I already helped Ed with his. He's got his is done. I got mine done. Ed added some very nice things to his, and of course he hasn't seen the finished product yet as to his document. But anyway, I should say instrument. But the thing is it's all about common sense. If you use common sense in your verbiage, and you use your knowledge, and you look up these laws, and you look up the codes, and things will become very easily for you. And of course, now I'm telling you what forms to go, because that's where everybody's having problems. They don't know how to address the forms. Well, believe it or not, in that documentation, the one I'm telling you where to go, and you just do your Google search bar, believe it or not, there are, when you pull up the form, it actually tells you how to fill them out. And you can read on it. It tells you what the forms are for, etc. So I don't know how to. I mean, it's pretty simple. It's not all that hard to figure out, because that is where we were lacking. It was the forms. We didn't know how to fill out the forms. I've also learned by looking at those forms. Now, you can modify those forms. They don't have to be right to a T, their language. You can modify them, but at least it gives you an idea, the layout, how to properly address those forms. Now, remember, those are forms pertaining to the court. So you don't alter the most important parts of those forms, because then basically all you did was just create your own form. We want to use their layout. Yes, we want to modify it somewhat. Yes, we do want to change some of the verbiage pertaining to, like, where you would have it endorsed as to from the notary. That's where you would change some of that verbiage in other words, you don't say signature, you would say autograph, and da-da-da-da-da. So that's what I'm trying to get at. Because remember, they have to follow the rules. They have to follow the rules pertaining to civil procedure regarding the courts. And we do too. Otherwise, we would be breaking the law. Those laws were put there on the books for a reason. And if they don't follow protocol, and if you don't follow protocol, well, then you're breaking the law. You're no different than they are. Am I still there?
You're here.
Hello? Oh, okay.
You're going. Keep going.
Okay. Well, it got off.
No, I know. People are quiet. They're listening. Keep going.
So it's just very important. Now, if you need help and you're working on your paperwork, and if you have a question, Ed and David and I are willing to, if we can, we're willing to, guide you or help you as far as some of the things that, that we're aware of that you're not aware of. And of course, now if there are other people on the call that know how to address paperwork also and have gone to court, then of course you can ask them, because you can show them what you're doing and you can show them the form, and that would also help them as to what you're trying to do. Remember, you're the only one who knows your case the best. You're the only one that can see your actual documentation as to your evidence. That's why it's important, and you have to learn these laws and codes as you're applying them on your paperwork. And I'm going to give you an example why. Asking somebody to do up your paperwork is one thing, but if you're not learning what they're doing for you, that's bad. Because I'm going to give you an example. If you go into that court and you're citing case laws, and I'm going to tell you right now, you want to cite case laws to back up your evidence pertaining to some of your statements you're making also, if you can. Now, it's hard to find sometimes case laws to back up your claim. Don't worry about it, but I would definitely look them up. The reason why you have to know what you're citing, now I don't mean you have to remember word by word. That's not what I'm getting at. But you have to know what the heck it pertains to. And I'll tell you why. Because a judge will purposely ask you and throw you off your feet, and she'll say, "Can you tell me what that case law is about?" And if you don't know the answer or have an idea what it pertains to, at least, you know what that judge is going to do with your case? Case dismissed. That's how dirty they are, especially if you have been in court before and you know what the hell you're doing. Or they can see that, oh my God, you did your homework and you have a beautiful documentation put together that proves your claim. Let me tell you something. Your paperwork is what scares them, because they don't know you, but they sure know your paperwork, and it comes down to how you present your paperwork, how you present yourself. And when they see a documentation done very nicely and very well put together pertaining to the laws, in other words, quit the whining. Don't whine. If you want to sit there and whine, that judge is going to say, oh, brother, can we get rid of this person? You only outline what's necessarily and what you need to say as to what shows as to you being a victim to a crime. If you think you're going to go into the courtroom and you're going to have a 20-page summary of whining, that judge is going to look at you nuts. But if you have a 20-page summary of all true facts pertaining to the evidence and you're not whining, well, now that's a whole different scenario. So don't whine. Just list what is necessary as to how you became a victim. And I'm going to tell you right now, for those pertaining to foreclosure, remember, I just gave you the beautiful illustration, and I don't know how to say it any clearer than that. All right? The instrument has to be attached to the promissory note or the note in order for a bank to do a transfer pertaining to money. And I don't care how many attorneys and how many lawyers you talk to, they are not going to tell you any different. Why? Because do you realize what you just said to that attorney and that lawyer? They already know that they themselves, committed a crime, because they were part of the racketeering and the conspiracy pertaining to those fraudulent claims right along with the judges in court. And I'm going to be talking about this subject this coming Wednesday when I meet with these beautiful people that are acting like they're going to help me, and what they don't know, and when I surprise them, because when I go in there, that's when I'm going to be asking for a law enforcement, somebody in uniform with a badge, and he's going to record the conversation, and I'm following forward with my complaint, identity theft complaint. And boy, when they see my identity theft complaint as to if you could just see what I put together, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not just speaking for me. I'm speaking for every homeowner who has lost their home. And I'm going to tell you right now, when I get done with them, because what am I going to do? I'm going to demand that every foreclosure that was addressed in the United States through the 50 states, that every homeowner is going to be reinstated, reimbursed back their money that they lost or their homes. Now that's what I'm going to do, because they are all victims to identity theft. Now, that only applies, of course, to the true victims regarding identity theft pertaining to them losing their homes. I'm not talking about somebody who personally, created their own problem by not making a mortgage payment. That don't apply to them. That's a different scenario. Although they did fall under a fraudulent act upon them, and of course, like I was telling you, the banks didn't really loan them money. But that's a different scenario. I'm talking about somebody who was trying to make a mortgage payment, and the banks refused to help them because of financial affairs. Now, those are the people that I'm willing to fight for, because they were trying to not lose their homes. I'm not going to fight for somebody who thinks that you're going to get a free ride and have something given to you for free just because you think, the bank did you wrong. It don't work that way. Two wrongs don't make a right.
Well, that depends when you're traveling down the road.
That's true. So can you imagine now, guys, and the listeners on the call? Remember, this falls under Title 18, 1001, and that means trickery. Trickery. Mm-hmm. Now, remember, when you can prove trickery regarding the law, and that they used the law against you pertaining to trickery, you're going to lose. You're going to win. You're going to win. Another thing
I got
too.
a question for you, Michelle.
Yeah, sure.
When you take out a loan, the bank does an insurance policy on you, So if you
I'm glad you brought that up.
come in default on your payment, they go to the insurance company to receive payment.
That is correct.
So how can they therefore foreclose on you if they've been paid?
They can't. That's a good point. Let me explain that. Let me go into more detail on that, how that works. Okay. That falls under title insurance is what David's talking about. That's under title insurance. Now, the title insurance does not apply to the bank. The title insurance applies to the lender, the actual person who gave you the money. Now, I want to bring something to your attention because that's very important. The lender was the one who actually borrowed the money from the bank. The bank didn't do poop. It was the actual lender and the servicer who has their name on your contract as to your mortgage. That's why the banks cannot sue you while they're doing it, and that's another form of fraud. The lender is the only one who was insured through the title company or the insurance title. So, because of the insurance that you had to take out when you bought your home, now, of course, that wasn't mandated. That was a volunteer thing. So if you did have title insurance, that means that the lender would have been paid for your defaults.
And double check that, folks, to see, because it's in everybody's contract, and it's in very, very small print.
That is true. Very small print.
May I please?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Who is the lender?
Whatever bank institution that you want to. I bought my land from a private individual, so I didn't deal with any banks or anything. I dealt with the landowner herself.
Yeah, well, Michelle just said that the bank wasn't the lender.
That's correct.
Yes.
The bank is not the lender. The lender pertaining to your mortgage is an actual true person who is whose name should be on your contract as to your promissory note. That's the person who actually, in other words, the person who loaned you the money borrowed the money from the bank, and that would be the lender. So the only way you're going to find that out is by looking at your contract, and they call themselves either the servicer or the lender. The servicer is the actual person who is the one who really gave you the money, not the bank. So that's the only person who can actually sue you if you were in the rears on your mortgage. Now, another thing, that's why, yes, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Have you ever seen a contract where the servicer or lender was actually mentioned?
Oh, absolutely, and I'm going to tell you right now that it is absolutely mentioned in your contract. Did you go through the title company?
Oh, I've never had a mortgage in my life.
Oh, yes, the name is there. Absolutely, the name would be there.
Yeah.
Yes. So if you are a first-time buyer, just so you know, see, a lot of people don't think about this. You know, they think that, because remember, when you sit down and they're working out the sweet promissory note, remember that bank was only after the note, just like I was explaining to you. The note is like your check, but without your signature on that note, right? They can't do nothing. That's why the bank wanted you to sign the promissory note, because that was classified as an instrument. So what the banks did is they took your promissory note because you had endorsed it. And because you had endorsed it, the banks created what's called paper money out of thin air. So what they did is they took your promissory note and they cashed it. Now, when they cashed it, they paid off your mortgage, if you had a mortgage, for instance. So the banks paid off your mortgage with your promissory note, which is called a CD deposit. So the promissory note was treated as cash. And they paid off the mortgage, and what they did is they sold your note to another bank, and that is lawful. That is not illegal. That is lawful.
But they have to notify you.
No, they do not.
Yes, they do.
No, they do not. You're wrong.
Yes, they do. There is an actual law in it that says they have to notify you, and I'll go find it.
Let me finish my statement, and so you know why I'm saying you're wrong. When the bank does a transfer, that is where they have to notify you, and that's where Ed is correct.
Michelle, they cannot give a contract and redo a contract without your autograph and authorization, period.
That's right, and I just got done clarifying that, and that's what I'm saying. I'm agreeing. So when they do a transfer, like Ed is saying, when the bank does a transfer, now that's after you have purchased your home, you have a mortgage through this bank. Like, for instance, you have a mortgage through Wells Fargo. That is a contract. Now, the bank, meaning Wells Fargo, cannot transfer that contract to another bank without your permission. That is what Ed is talking about, and he is correct. Now, if the bank does do a transfer, they have to give you what's called a 30-day notice, and that is in the law. No lie. Okay?
And that has to be registered, certified. It can't just be dropped in the mail because they can't prove that you didn't get it, and they can't say they got it.
Well, and Ed, that's a good point. Now, let's say they didn't send it to you by certified mail, but they did send it to you by regular mail. Okay. Well, guess what? Let's say they sent it to you by regular mail. Now it's their word against your word. Now, they have to prove that they sent you that documentation. Guess what? And if they don't have proof, you're going to win your case. Because why? They didn't get a return receipt stating that they actually sent you that documentation as to the notice that they were going to change from one bank to another. And because now of the 30-day statute that they are in contempt of court now on, see, you can file a claim against them and claim that they're in contempt of court because they have violated the law. And what law did they violate? Which is Rule 60. Why? Because you didn't get notification within the 30 days. Well, if the 30 days have lapsed, and now they're coming after you because they're claiming that they sent you a notice and well, really? Where's the notice? See, remember, here's one of the things that I've learned, and it took me a long time because, I'm learning just like you're learning, and I never stop learning, okay? I still learn things every day, just like on the phone just a little bit ago, bringing things to my attention as what I should say, which is true. Now, I lost my thought. I
want to jump off here when you get your thought come back, but I want to jump off here.
Sure.
I'm going off with some people on the internet dealing with Social Security right now. And they're talking about undated mandates and stuff of unfunded liability. Let me explain bluntly, clearly. March 1st, 1997, William Jefferson Clinton signed your employer donation of your Social Security over to the Queen of England. Okay? Everything you pay is still there, but your employers is going over to England to cover up for the racketeering, extortion, and fraud that they're billing the federal government. Remember, the federal government is the British government. That's a fact. And that's the point, that they're supposed to be working for us under the contract of 1871. And they know it, and that was even put in place back with the Bankruptcy Act, too, and what we were talking about, too. Okay, and see, when it comes to Social Security, folks, don't get lost up when people are running off on these different directions on it. Social Security has the funding. The elected and public employees in Congress have borrowed $800 trillion from Social Security since 1970. They are personally liable for their assets, their paychecks, their family inheritance, everything of theirs going down the road. They know it. So, it's interesting when I watch a lot of these people go off on Social Security about, and Social Security, that's up to you if you want to be part of it and pay into it. Okay? But say you have to really read the contract with Social Security today and then try to find the original contract, which I think I still have somewhere maybe in my computer after it went down, with the original contract of Social Security, because it was set up for lawful Americans only. And it even stated in the original, illegals and immigrants do not apply to it.
Well, now that
only
you brought that
we
up,
the people.
Now that you brought that up, Ed, let me bring something to the listeners, because you brought up a good, valid point regarding Social Security. Okay. I'm telling you, it's amazing what I have discovered, and Ed has discovered, and David has discovered just within a few days, okay? When you look up subpart 25.4, which has to do with the trade agreements, that's about 6 pages long. And then there's another one you're going to look up, which is 1 through 66 pages long, and that is what falls under the Fair Trade Act. Now, when you pull that up, everything is in there regarding the law. And what I mean by that is what was passed through Congress. Now, regarding our Social Security. And by the way, that also falls under tax fraud. So there's a lot to learn when it comes to using your Social Security number. They're not supposed to be using your Social Security number pertaining to your taxes. So there's a lot to learn on that note. But I wanted to bring something since Ed brought that about the taxes up, I wanted to bring something to your attention. In 1993, now this is the Revenue Service. The Revenue Service is a foreign nation out of the United States, and they are a debt collector, okay? And just for those that don't know, a debt collector cannot sue you. Bottom line, they cannot sue you.
Don't forget, they're unregistered. They're not even registered as business and liability.
Right? Yeah, that's true. That's why. Hey Ed. That's why they didn't sign the my green card. They didn't endorse the green card when I sent them my certified letter. You were going to say
Dave, were you going to say something?
Yeah, David was going to say something.
Yeah, you got to remember that green card. If the post office did not get the proper signature on that card, that's breach of contract. You can sue the Postal Service for breach of contract.
Yeah, that's true.
It has to be a live signature, not a stamp.
You paid to have them deliver that and obtain a signature.
Yeah, that's right. That is true, David.
And then I want to bring up this point.
Wait, before I lose my thought, because there was something on the Social Security that before I lose my thought. On the Social Security now, in 1993, what they did is they deliberately, now this is the Internal Revenue Service, they deliberately, with intent, removed the Form 515.
Oh, yeah.
They deliberately, are you listening to my words, guys? Deliberately did it. Now, those that are on Social Security or Social Security disability, what you need to do is you need to call the Social Security's office and ask for that form. And that form has to do with you being exempt regarding you paying taxes on your property.
Mm-hmm.
Simple as that. Rather than trying to go through the IRS, go through the Social Security Department and ask them for the form. Now, if they say they don't have it, well then, ask them why not. I'd like to find out why they don't have it. But then that means you're going to have to request it through the IRS, and they have to give it to you. Bottom line. Oh, and I want to just bring up I want to just cite one other statute here, and then Ed, you can have the floor. Also on your documents. Now this also applies to Congress, and this is Title 18 USC Section 1028, small a, and then the number 7. Now that will apply to what I gave you on the other codes and statutes regarding, hang on a minute, I'm looking for my paper, on the others, on the, where is it? Hang on. That will also apply to the Section 3-416 regarding transfers and warranties. It's very important that I'm bringing this to your attention. Are you ready for this now? In 1993, remember that 1993, write it down, guys. That's when Congress changed a lot of the documents pertaining to the laws as to what they were citing. So when you look up these codes, and especially under the Trade Agreements Act, no joke, guys, guess what year's listed on there? 1993. And that falls under the Trade Agreement Implementation Act, 1993. So I don't know, when you start putting all this together and you start, now this is your evidence I'm giving you, you start putting this hardcore evidence together, you think that they're going to go against you, especially when you bring the IRS in it. You need to file an IRS claim regarding you being a victim to identity theft regarding your taxes, especially if you have a mortgage. Okay, Ed, you got the floor.
Hold on a minute.
Oh,
hold the floor
David,
for a minute.
David,
I'm in my freezer now.
Okay, David, you got the floor.
Okay, we have a situation because the Supreme Court of the United States ruled that you cannot tax your labor.
That's right.
We submitted to President Trump my claim using the court case as the claim. It has now been over 20 days, and Mr. Trump has failed to give me a lawful response. So he now admits to those...
Hey, David, hold on a second, will you? Somebody's doing a lot of paper shuffling. I can't hear anything going on.
Oh, sorry, that was me. I'm out.
Okay, David. Go ahead, David.
So anyway, the rulings of the court, the highest court in our land, the IRS, are basically ignoring everything that the court ruled on relating to taxes. There are some 60 key case rulings that I obtained from the hearing on taxation in Washington, D.C. by We the People Foundation for Constitutional Education. They held a hearing, and we invited every member of Congress. We invited the IRS. We invited the president. We presented to them 300 questions to be answered at this hearing. They originally scheduled it at the Senate House Office Building. At the last minute, they changed their minds because once they read those questions, they knew we had them. And then eventually it got to the point where they didn't want to have the hearing at all. So we scheduled it at a motel close to the White House, and we held the hearing there. Again, neither the Congress, the President, IRS showed up to answer the questions. But we held the hearing anyway, and we asked the 300 questions. And we had attorneys and people from the IRS, former members of the IRS, employees, I should say. who actually answered those questions. It's available on video and DVD if anybody wants to go to We the People Foundation and get a copy of those. But I've already got them posted on Tax Fraud in America. But it's like you have to prove that these cases exist or something. You know, I'm sorry, I didn't present them. The We the People Foundation did. And we also presented at that hearing in 2002 the fact that the 16th Amendment to the Constitution was never lawfully ratified. And these things have already been presented to the IRS as far back as 2002 by me. And they ignore everything you send to them.
Well, David,
yeah.
The bill that just got passed since Trump's been in office, that H.R. 33332 bill that Trump just addressed, he has on there that this act may be cited as the Law Enforcement Torture Prevention Act, and it's dated as of 2015.
Okay.
Now I don't know what's going to happen with that, but somebody had Mr. Danny K. Davis of Illinois is the one who introduced it, that bill.
Okay. Right. Yeah. I got it in my. That's on my.
The info you gave me.
That's on my due process form.
And also too, it's on neworgantrackers.com website.
Yeah. So that's.
Yeah, I agree with you, Michelle. There's no argument there.
Yeah. So I think that I honestly here's what I think. I think that if those that are on the call, if they really get their homework together and look up the info that we gave them, because we gave them the biggest piece of the puzzle. This is what people didn't have before, and they were getting the runaround when it came to them going to court. Well, now that you have the answers to the missing pieces of the puzzle, and you sit down and you put your statements together, and you do just that, and you pin them up against the wall under violations of your due process rights, because that's a federal crime. And so once you do that documentation, and even if you did lose your home, you can still get it back, or you can get compensated, because remember, that's a big violation of the Fifth Amendment pertaining to the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
You're not. They can't just take your home like that from you. That you have to be compensated. And
anything they take from you, you have to be compensated for.
Well, that's correct. That is correct. So that's another big piece of the puzzle. So these are things that, when you sit down and you start, once you look up Title 7 under the Penal Code, I'm going to tell you right now, we just gave you what no lawyer or attorney will give you. Basically we broke the code. You broke the code, guys. We broke the code. This is what they did not want you to know, and that's why it's important that you state in your documentation, with personage comes barratry. Why? Because under that scenario, that lawyer can be removed as being an attorney. He has to be removed by...
I'll be right back.
Okay. The Bar Association...
That's another thing I brought out in my documentation was the fact that if an attorney appointed to represent the defendant, the court considers the defendant incompetent. So how do you send to jail an incompetent individual? Why isn't his attorney going to jail?
That's true.
Exactly. They don't like it when we get down and dirty with them.
Well, when I was in court and when the judge asked me my name, and I tell you, I wish you could have seen the look, but when she asked me my name, I said, which one? Boy, she gave me the look like you wouldn't believe. Like, I threw her off. I threw her off. Huh?
I love that.
Yeah, I said, which one? Meaning.
I just told him my mom called me David.
Yeah, and you know what? I actually threw her off. She didn't know. She did not know how to. I mean, I wish you could have seen her facial expression, but she didn't know what to do because she was like, you know, type of response.
When my mom got really, really mad to the point where she just couldn't hardly control it, she would just go, "All right, girl, David." Call all of us.
Yeah.
We knew that Mom was pissed.
That is true. Oh, I got to bring something that's real important too. Okay, this is for those that are facing to lose their home. All right, let's say you've gone to court, and the judge says, "Well, I'm sorry, I just don't see enough evidence here to stop me from giving them the possession of your house, which is called a writ of possession." All right, now you're in court, and now you're saying, "Oh shit! Well, I just lost my house." Wrong. Well, you have 30 minutes or less than 30 days to do something that's real important. What you're going to do is you're going to address your affidavit of ownership. Now, when you address your affidavit of ownership, you have to go and look at your mortgage papers to get their and use their own verbiage. Don't alter it. Use their own verbiage in your documentation, and you have to get your ID number, which is the parcel number regarding your taxes. You got to get that information, and you have to apply that in your affidavit of ownership. Now, guess what? See, this is what they don't want you to know. Like I said, we're revealing things here, and we're giving you the big piece of the puzzle. We broke the code. Now, you're going to fill out that affidavit of ownership, and what are you going to do with it? You're going to hurry up and go get it notarized, okay? And I would get it witnessed and notarized 3 times, okay, to have really good standing. Now, don't just have it notarized once. Get it notarized by a notary, and have it witnessed by some of your friends, okay? Take that documentation. Now you're going to hurry up and get in your car, and you're going to run. And where are you going to run? You're going to take it to probate court. You're going to take it, and you're going to and get it in court of records. Now you're also going to enter it in the court that you were in regarding your foreclosure. You're going to enter it in that court under evidence. So when you give it to the clerk of the court, you're going to say to the clerk of the court, I need you to put this in as evidence. Make sure you do that. Now, when you take your document and she stamps it, say, "I'm sorry, but no. Yep, I like that black ink stamp. Very well, but I don't want the black ink stamp. I want the impression stamp, please." Now she's going to say, "Well, why is that?" Say, "It's none of your business. I want the stamp, and I know you have it in your drawer. I want the seal indented on my paper. Thank you very nicely. Besides you stamping it. Make sure you get the imprint." Why? Because an ink stamp can be duplicated and it can be fraudulently done. Where when you get the imprint on your documentation, that cannot be done. So make sure you say to that clerk of the court, when you're entering your evidence into the court of record, it's imprinted. Okay? You want to make 2 copies of the original. You're going to have her stamp the one that's going to be the original for the judge, but you're going to do the imprint on your copy, and you're going to take that with you when you leave the court. Very important you learn these things, because remember, anybody can falsify an piece of ink on a piece of paper, but they sure in the hell can't do it when it comes to an imprint. It's hard to do because you can tell that it's been modified. Another thing, too, for those that have addressed the court, look at your court documents, because I'm going to tell you right now they don't have them. If you do not see a court seal stamp next to the signatures endorsement page, meaning the judge, not the clerk of the court, but the judge, or even the clerk of the court, because sometimes the judge's names aren't even on the documents, it's just the clerk of the court. Make sure there is a court stamp on those endorsements or near the endorsements. If there is no court seal stamp on any of your documentation pertaining to the signatures page coming from the clerk of the court or the judge, you've won your case, because you can claim that that is a fraudulent documentation or instrument. Why? Because anybody could take that document and modify it, and you have no idea. And your argument will be, I'm sorry, I'm not accepting this. There is no court seal on here. Anybody with the clerk of the court's name or the judge's name on this piece of paper doesn't mean jack shit. It's the same bullshit like with the instrument. If your name's not on the instrument pertaining to the check, guess what? It's not legit. It's the same scenario. Don't let them fool you, because they're going to say, oh, no, that stamp as us receiving the document in the court of records is official. Bullshit. No, it's not. Yeah, it might be official that they received it and you entered it in, but it don't mean nothing. Because if it don't have a court seal, court stamp, when they send that document to the party of interest, the party of interest can claim the same thing. They can claim and say, well, wait a minute, how do I know if this is legit? So it works both ways. The plaintiff can claim it, and the defendant can claim it. So make sure it has the seal, the court's actual seal. And I'm going to tell you right now, I know I'm correct. You want to know why? Because when the judge took my home illegally, none of those documents had a court seal next to the judge's signature, nor near the clerk's of the court's signature. But guess which one it did have it on? Oh, the one that went to the property appraisal's office. Electronically, it went there electronically, but guess what it had on it? The court's seal. And that's why the property appraisal's office thought it was legit. So, now you know why I'm saying you have to address your affidavit of ownership before your 30 days is up, when they are addressing that possession of property. Because once you run over to the property appraisals department in your state or your county or whoever it is that holds your title, right? Whoever holds your title, when you give them a copy of your affidavit of ownership. Now, in your affidavit of ownership, after you're done documenting all the valuable things pertaining to your contract, what are you going to write on that instrument? I do not consent to auction or sale of my home. As of this date, from this date forward, no, I do not consent. And you claim that you're a victim to identity theft pertaining to fraud. And you give that to the property appraisal's office or whoever they tell you to give it to. And that's why I was telling you to give it to probate court. Probate court and the court as evidence in the court of records pertaining to the courthouse that you're up against. Now, I don't know how many of you have actually listened to the recording when you call the courthouse and they tell you, you know, it's an automated recording. please listen to the whole darn thing. Did you know that they actually tell you who you can speak to and who's all involved and da-da-da-da-da regarding your claim? There are other people that you can talk to, like the sheriff, for instance. They actually have the sheriff and the United States Marshal, believe it or not, listed in that court through the court if you need to talk to them. And even the parties who are involved regarding auctioning off your house. These are things you didn't think to do. So if you listen to the recording, you can get transferred right to the main. In other words, you're going to bypass the judge, you're going to bypass the clerk of the court, and who are you going to talk to but are the most important people that are thinking that the contract's legit when in fact it's not legit. And what are you going to do? You're going to put them on notice it's not legit and that they are dealing with a fraudulent claim. So that's another scenario, because I know a lot of people haven't even addressed the court or are just learning how to address the court, or it's their first time learning how to address the court. So listen to the recordings, go through the cycles, click on them, and see who it pertains to, and da-da-da-da-da. That's what I did. Boy, I wished I'd have known that a long time ago, because I didn't do that. If I'd have known that back then, I would have stopped the sale on my home, because all I needed to do was talk to the marshal. Well, I didn't know I could go through the court's website and speak directly to the marshal. See, they don't tell you that shit, because remember, they don't want you to know that stuff. So that's another scenario when it comes to you if you're in foreclosure or you're, or hell, it doesn't even have to be pertaining to foreclosure. If you're a victim to identity theft or a crime, you can. They have other parties, other networks that pertain to the court where it just gets transferred. And believe it or not, it's the state attorney, your attorney general, and the United States Marshal of your state. Those are three important people if that's who you want to reach out to. Boy, I wished I'd have known that. I wished I'd have known that back then. Of course, I didn't. So now you do. Now I know why I have them getting no joke, guys. This coming Wednesday, I am going to be up against God knows how many people that they're going to be bringing in. I have them so scared right now. And when they told me that they were going to bring an attorney in, I was like, are you kidding me? You know what that told me when they said that to me? Are you that freaking stupid?
No, but the one thing is you got to make sure you're bringing a recording device with you. Oh, absolutely. You know who's doing the recording for me? And of course I'm going to have my recording too, because I'm going to be requesting 2 recordings. I'm going to be requesting a sheriff, and see, I'm going to be filing my criminal complaint under identity theft when I meet with those ding-dongs. If they think I'm going to go march my little tail in and sit down with them and with this attorney and go over all their findings, see, that's what they want to do. Well, really? Hey, I don't mind doing that, but guess what? I'm going to put them also on notice after the. See, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play their game. I'm going to play stupid. See, you have to play stupid sometimes to get ahead. Well, when you go bear hunting, you got to be smarter than the bear if you want to eat.
Well, that's true, Ed. That is true. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go in there, and I'm going to play their game. I'm going to go in there, and I'm going to let them, introduce me to the attorney. And, remember now, they're supposed to be doing this on my behalf. They're not against me, okay? They're doing it because, why? They want to make themselves look good, okay? Da-da-da-da-da. So I'm going to play the game. I'm going to let them go on and give me all their beautiful detail and all this and that. And then when we're all done, I'm going to say, okay, hang on a minute. Now I'm going to give you my affidavit of truth. I am now filing a claim under identity theft. I'm putting you on notice as we speak right now. Now I need a sheriff in here, and he needs to bring in 2 tape recorders. one for him and one for me. And I'm going to record mine. He's going to record his. That way, there won't be no misinterpretations as, oops, my tape recorder quit working, or oops, geez, I think there's something missing on this tape recorder. I don't remember that.
I forgot batteries.
Yeah, right. So he's going to have one, I'm going to have one, and I'm going to lay it to him. In other words, I'm going to let them know, okay, now we will be moving forward with a criminal claim, and here's my claim, and da-da-da-da-da, and if you don't, well, guess what? Every one of you in this room, you are now my witness. And you are also aware of the act, and I am now putting you all on notice that you will be now will be receiving a subpoena on my behalf when I go to court. Da 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 da. So take
Not
your
only
pick.
that, Michelle, I've already made sure it's public record.
What was that?
I've already made sure it's public record.
Oh, absolutely, it's a public record. That's why it's indicated.
Well, I know that.
Record.
I'm just saying is that, you know, when you talk to these people, they got to realize it's already a public record.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you are leaving that building.
So true, Ed. So true. Well, and that's why I have it on my paperwork, an affidavit of truth, public record. It says public record right on the top.
Well, anyhow, I want to get into a couple things here real quick, so not interrupt you. But I want to jump in back on the 16th Amendment was never ratified. Per Article 5 of the U.S. Constitution, Congressional Record House, June 13th, 1967, page 15641 through 15646, and DYET versus Turner, 1968 federal court case. And this was done in the Supreme Court as well as the congressional records of Congress. So the 16th Amendment was never, ever ratified. The only reason why taxes became existence was because of Executive Order 2040 of the Bankruptcy Act, that the British government went bankrupt to we the people. And that's a very important thing that I just put on arguing with people back and forth on the internet. And I'm sending them the laws and the facts, and they're going, well, that doesn't mean nothing. Well, to me, I just throw back to one guy and said, I just wasted my time because you're a dumbass, and so you want to be a British citizen, so please go to England.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know? Now, I want to prove to you all, this is what came out with Davidlee versus Davis, 301 U.S. 619, 1937. This is the United States Supreme Court and record, which held that Social Security was constitutional permissible, because they wrote it in so that way it was done for lawful Americans, not immigration, not foreigners, like when the Nazis came over here and they started giving them Social Security. And I was glad to see that, even though I don't support Obama, 2 years ago, Obama canceled all Social Security for anybody from England, for Germany. Well, it's sort of a little late because most of them already died. But, but it still had the meaning. Social Security was designed for we the people. Now, I have put in, and I've been for trying to do that, and I'm going to do this in my campaign, too, when I do the recall on the governor that I've got to finish writing up and focus. I'm behind on 5 documents right now. Yeah, I know, Dave. But the point being is that, filing this stuff to get it out now with the governor, I could prove a whole bunch of stuff with her that I filed on going back to 2006 with her covering up the destruction of my family. And so when I send a flyer out, and I know because people keep telling me, Ed, quit putting all this stuff in. It's like a book to read. Well, when I send a flyer out for our talk show, the stuff that I've mentioned to you is in that flyer. So when I post it on your Facebook walls and stuff, you already have the actual information on your wall that we have stated. So I just would like you guys to be aware of that. It's in the letter that I put out for our talk show. So that way you do have the evidence there that I can provide without going too far, without it being a major, what they call major reading or whatever, or where Facebook says, well, you've already gone over 30,000 deals and we can't do anymore. So, but this is the whole point about working together, educating each other, and when others are working on cases, you guys got cases that you've won and stuff, we want to get them up. We want to post your stuff because you're educating us, we're educating you, and if we don't do this to make sure that the children are educated, we have no future.
May I please?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I have a question concerning the Internal Revenue Service. I got some documents off of your site, and one of them had to deal with a verified, there was a claim, and one was a notice of claim. Mm-hmm. And I was reading those documents, and I wanted to know if you've have previously done an administrative process with the Internal Revenue Service, and they have not responded to any of your overtures. Do you go forward with the claim? Do you file the notice of claim, or do you file a criminal claim with that claim?
Okay. Well, I'm going to let Dave get into that, then I'll answer behind Dave.
I actually sued the IRS in Common Pleas Court in Hancock County. They failed to show for summons. They failed to show for show cause hearing. I made motions for default judgment, and the judge dismissed the case without ruling on the motion for default.
Okay, without ruling on it.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Judge Reginald J. Routson.
So are you saying this was a victory for you?
Well, according to me, I won the case because they failed to show for court.
Okay.
And that happens in any court case. If you don't show up for a court case, they win, don't they?
Yeah, that is correct.
Here's what
gee, that was 2008. This is now 17. And
here's what
the IRS. Do you want to explain that?
So here's what David has to do now. Whenever you file a claim in the court, and they don't answer and they don't respond, what you have to do is you have to follow through with that. So you have to follow another notice. Okay. Now what you do is you file that note before you file the court. You have to file a response to the same party that you were addressing as to in your complaint.
Yes.
So what you do is you file another notice, which you would claim second notice, and you give them a time frame. I'm giving you 7 business days to comply to this second notice since you have not answered. Now, and the reason for that is because you have to prove with intent.
Okay.
If you don't prove with intent,
in court, Michelle, following that, along with an affidavit signed by both me and High King Chief Scott Philip Hayes out of Canada, whereby we listed the fact that the Crown was involved in all this crap, and that didn't even go anywhere.
Now, if you, David, since you filed it with the court,
a notice of default,
that changes the whole scenario now because you're talking about addressing the court. See, once you file your paperwork in court, now it becomes the court. So that means that you have to file with the court a notice that who you're claiming, or who you're going up against, that they are now in contempt of court
and default. You can't forget default. That's a major deal because if you don't put the default in, you can't claim the other.
Well, contempt of court is a serious matter. So when you
default.
No, actually, it's actually the notice.
It document, the court altered the cover sheet to where I filed it into court, and
right.
they committed personage or barter.
Sure, they did. Mm-hmm. Now, when the court alters a court document and you have
right.
evidence of that, what you have to do, that's very serious. Now, that's what's called, huh?
That's a felony.
I know.
Sure,
He's dealing with it right now. That's the point that we're dealing with right now with them on.
Correct. So because they modify. Well, first of all, let me finish where I was. Let me go back and then I'll touch on that. They're in contempt of court. Why? Because they violated the statutes of law, which falls under Rule 60. Now, when you mention Rule 60 to the court, that's a serious crime. And they are also in contempt of court, which is a serious crime. And, of course, now under Rule 60, that's when you would mention like Ed is saying, that's when you say that they are in, not only are they in contempt of court, but they are also under violations, which is...
well, they committed treason against the Constitution.
Mm-hmm. And the default, yes. Right.
But you have to act. So that's the bottom line. And you have to know how to act properly, because what they'll do is they'll just sit on it. They won't do shit. And you know why? Because they're like, oh, man, I hope this guy doesn't respond to my crap, because they're hoping and praying that you're going to just let it go and not do anything.
In the first place, I never closed the case. The court closed the case.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's another violation. So when the court closes a case, now that is what's called a notice of default. That is a notice of default. And you have to properly address the notice of default, and you address the notice of default to the clerk. And you come right out and you say the clerk of the court and the court has now, I always say it appears, because you got to cover your butt. It appears that the clerk of the court has committed fraud upon the court, notice of default, and appears is now committing fraud upon the court, because you're covering two subjects there, subject matters pertaining to the law. Yeah, and then that's where you can, and now on top of that, you also say, well, guess what? Your due process rights were violated upon, and you list all your true facts pertaining to the law, and they're also in contempt of court. And then, of course, now when you do that, what are you going to do? You're going to ask for a dismissal. So what you do in that paperwork, when you address...
Why would he want a dismissal? He wants to put a summary judgment in.
I'm going to explain... No, that's where you're wrong. I'm going to explain it to you. The reason why you have to request for a notice of dismissal, because the case has to be dismissed first. Then you turn around and you resubmit another claim for damages rendered. Remember, they closed the case. They committed a crime. So you have to...
That's a good point. Okay, I see your point where they had to do that. They ended it, so they admitted to the crime. That is a valid point.
So in order to win, you have to file now what's called a motion to dismiss, because remember, you're claiming that they were in what? In contempt of court. They were in contempt. Right, that's correct. That's correct, David. But those are your facts. So in other words, fact one is they're in contempt of court under violations of Rule 60. Mm-hmm. Fact two, they committed fraud upon the court as to your notice of default, because why? They didn't answer to your notice of default. Mm-hmm. See, that's how it plays out. Yep. And you just go down the list. And now what you're doing is you're asking for a motion to dismiss for damages rendered. So you have to file a notice of dismiss first, meaning that that their case is null and void. Because remember, they're the ones that had control of the court. They're the ones that closed the case, not you. They did. So you've moved for a motion to dismiss. After the motion to dismiss is filed pertaining to your damages, as you're outlining regarding the fraud, as to them being in violations of in contempt of court, as to your notices upon the court, and they didn't answer to those. And by the way, the notice of default is another contempt of court, okay? Because they didn't answer to that notice of default within the time frame. Remember, this falls back on the civil rules booklet. Like I was telling everybody, they have to follow procedure, and if they don't follow procedure and protocol pertaining to the civil rules booklet, oh, guess what? Now you have them by the seat of their pants, because now their case is now null and void due to the findings that you're going to come forward, and so you have to request for a motion to dismiss, and then of course it's going to be granted. I don't see why not. And then now boom. Now what you do is now you have a lawsuit, another lawsuit on top of that suit that you lost, right? So now you move forward, and now you're going to sue them. Now you, pardon?
I want it by default.
Correct. Well, no. You're going to win by contempt of court.
Well, you already won by default.
Contempt of court, it over trumps the default notice. The default notice is when the court is making a mistake or an error. That's when you apply a notice of default. When the clerk of the court I'll give you an example.
No, I agree with you, Michelle. You're right on what you're saying. You close the case, then you file the notice of default, and then you file the summary judgment for remedy of payment. It's simple. You've got it explained. We got it.
Right. Well, there's confusion here because you don't file for a notice of default after your motion to dismiss.
No, the default you want to put in with the motion to dismiss, because once they admit to dismissal, they already admitted to the default. All you do is put default in it. You just put it where they don't see it. They're going to just read it and go, oh, shit. You gotta go hunting for bear and learn how to get the bear.
No, Ed, let me clarify that. No. Because when you cite the codes and statute as to your first claim that they have violated on, you don't have to be under secrecy as to the listing the defaults. Your defaults are mentioned as to your claim, as to your lawsuit after you dismiss the case. So that's why you don't have to go back and when you file your lawsuit, you don't file it under notice of default as to the defaults. You file it as them being in contempt of court. The notice of default has already been addressed. You're not filing a notice of default. No, you're filing a contempt claim, which it trumps the notice of default because they already committed that act. So now, notice of default is a higher crime than a notice of default. So you're going to file a claim under contempt of court. They are now in contempt of court. Why? Because they have violated the procedures pertaining to the court regarding your notice of default, and the court did not respond to your notice of default. So now they're in contempt of court.
Now, Eddie, I want to get one thing addressed because I'm getting ready to send some information to a couple gentlemen. Okay. I would like to clarify the 16th Amendment by congressional record in Supreme Court was never, ever ratified. It was only put in place with Executive Order 2040. That way, when they started doing the de facto dollar, elected and public servants, registered church members and voters, and immigration are liable to pay taxes mandatory. Lawful bloodline exists or exempt. I will be putting this on several people's wall here in a minute. Trying to finish the other document because I had a couple other things I had to finish up and throw on the one Dave revised, because when he revised it, a couple things he missed in some of the points. So I'm doing that, and I'll have that done for you here in a minute, Dave, for us. But, I mean, the thing is that, you know, it's like Social Security. It's a constitutional protected structure that protects your family. So when you do this, you want to set your structures up on your living trust, which I'm doing. You set it up so that way you're setting it up so it's already a loadable title, it's already in structure so it cannot be taken away, and you're leaving it to your ancestry. Because if you don't leave them land, they cannot borrow. And you write in this stuff, they cannot borrow against it. They cannot make loans against it. Because at least, if worse comes to worse, they can collect rainwater and grow food, at least live and survive. That's your bloodline. If your bloodline ends, you become extinct.
That's a good point, Ed. And you know, you mentioned the 16th Amendment, but believe it or not, I also believe the 14th Amendment was not properly addressed either.
Actually, the 14th Amendment was actually ratified, like the 13th Amendment was ratified, and when they put into citizenship, that's what I brought up earlier, because that's where the Supreme Court stated that you could be born on this land, but you're not an inhabitant.
That makes sense.
Okay, the reason why they stated that was because there's no such thing as anchor babies, as we're brainwashed to think that we've been taught over this shit for 30 years. Remember, until the 1980s, nobody ever heard of an anchor baby. If people called immigration, they were shipped out in 72 hours back to their country. I know this. I witnessed this in the 70s and 80s.
Well, you brought up a valid point that as to you addressing your paperwork as to what you're doing. That's another thing regarding trustees. When if you don't have a mortgage, and you don't have to go to court to do this, guys. Okay, this is something that's, oh my God, it's so easy to do. If you know how to address a living will, no joke, this is how you do it. You claim yourself to your estate, your property, as you being the trustee. Now, if you know how to address a living will, or if you do not know how to address a living will, you can get somebody to help you that does know how to address a living will. But again, if you just Google search living will, it's all explanatory, and if you look up in Google search what is a trustee, it's all right there in beautiful language, and you can fill it out. Now, guess what the good news is? Once you address your estate as you being the trustee, then you take that instrument as your living will, okay, and you make sure you know the difference between a living will and what's it called? It's a living will, but there's another word for it. Oh, shoot, I can't think of it. Anyway, if you look it up, you'll know what I'm trying to say, because there's two terms that you use for a living will. There's a living will, and then there's
You're not talking about power of attorney.
No, doggone it. You're close, David.
Brain fart.
No, it's not a brain fart. It's anyway. When you look it up, you'll know what I'm talking about. Anyway, so you address the.
Go ahead, May.
Yes, about 15 minutes left in the show, I hear.
Yeah, I got you on that one. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Do we have any more questions? I mean,
I was just going to say.
That's where I was going to go and open the floor right now, because I was going to answer the one gentleman on taxes too, real quickly. I don't be part of the system. Okay, I never have. I had the IRS come after me in 1990. When I got done with them, the guy apologized to me on the phone. I have never heard from them again, and that's state and federal. Okay, because I was going to hold him liable.
Let me answer the gentleman that.
Go ahead, Dave, real quick.
Let me answer the gentleman. Has the IRS ever sent you under the Paperwork Reduction Act, 44 USC 3512? Have they ever sent you a notice that you are not required to fill out their forms? Because
where do you go?
In U.S. versus Lawrence in U.S. District Court in Peoria, Illinois, Mr. Lawrence won his case because the IRS never informed him that he was not required to fill out their paperwork. That 3512 is public protection under the Paperwork Reduction Act.
Hang on a minute. I got to put that in the damn paperwork we just wrote up.
Another thing.
What was that again, Dave? 3512?
Yeah, it's 44 USC.
44 USC.
At 3512 public protection.
That's one of the things we didn't put in this instrument that I had to have. So I told you, I ran into a couple things I had to put in it. There we go. That's another one. Go ahead.
The other thing is that nowhere in the IRS code, nor on any of the IRS forms, is the lawful definition of income for all tax legislation as ruled by the U.S. Supreme Court.
Well, you know what, David? On that note, and I'm going to let you guys take over, but on that note, now if you look up that law that I mentioned last week, it was 3-something. Well, if you look up the 3-416, it will mention some of that information, what you're talking about, and then there's another one. Oh, where did I put that law? Hang on, it was 3-something, David.
I have these court cases in our affidavit, constitutional criminal complaint that was filed with Congress and the IRS and the Supreme Court and the UN.
If you look up when you look up 25.401, which has to do with exemptions, you'll get some really good information on that. And by the way, in the trade agreements documentation and the Fair Trade, what falls under the Fair Trade Agreement Act, believe it or not, it specifies what you're touching on in their paperwork, which is awesome.
Yeah, and that's the reason why we tell people you got to look this stuff up.
Yep. The other one too to look up, and then I'm gonna leave the call because I got things to do. But if you look up the history, which is it's under history, which is 145 versus S 147 dot EFF and then 8-19-94. If you look up that information, that will also help you as to what we're talking about. And that falls under the accord and satisfaction by the use of an instrument regarding also the commercial lien in the commercial code. So if you look up it's 1303, 1303.40. If you look it up, which also falls under UCC 3-311. If you look those up, that information up, everything that we're talking to you on this phone about is all in that information that I just gave you. So if you really want to help us and you really want to fight for your rights and our rights,
and your rights.
That's what I said. Our rights. Then look that up. All right, I'm going to go because I'm working on I have a lot to do on regarding Wednesday, so I'm going to leave the call. I'll let you close. There was something, David. There was something that you and I had touched on when we were talking on the phone that I wanted to bring to our listeners' attention. Do you remember what it was? Remember? And you said, "Oh yeah, that's a good point." Remember?
Oh, right off offhand, I can't think of it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll try to remember it now, and I'll bring it up next week. But anyway, good luck, guys.
I have it on a note downstairs on the desk. But
I think you do, because it was something that I brought to your attention, and it was something that was real important, and I cannot remember. But anyway, I'm going to close. God bless everybody. Ed, I hope. Don't forget, I sent you your.
Resend it to me again when you get on the computer.
The instrument. Okay, your instrument.
Yeah. Resend it to me, because, like I said, I'm trying to catch up, but I haven't seen it, so that's what Anyhow, just resend it to me twice.
Okay, David, I also sent it to you. His instrument is done regarding the.
All right, we got it. We don't need to get all into that until we make it public.
Well, he doesn't know. I'm trying to let him know. I sent it to him by email. So, David, I also sent it to you by. Huh?
I've already got it. And copy.
Okay, because I sent you two. I mean, it wasn't a big mistake, but
okay.
There was some
All right. Anyhow, we're getting down to the wire here, Michelle.
Right. All right. So I'm gonna let you go, and I'll see you next week.
All right. You have a good one.
All right.
If you have any questions, I'll call you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead. Anybody got any thoughts or questions before we decide to walk off of the show? I would like to make sure if anybody has anything to speak, please speak up or even make notes for next week, but the floor is yours if you would like. Okay, I guess nobody wants the floor. So go ahead, David.
Okay. Well, I appreciate everybody on the call tonight, and I know we had some new listeners tonight, so the things that we presented, I hope were educational for you, because this is an educational show. We're not lawyers, we're not attorneys. We went through the School of Hard Knocks, and we studied to get to the bottom of the corruption. And that's what this show is about, is exposing the corruption in government. So...
Well, not government, elected and public servants, because we, the government, is bad enough.
Yeah, I knew that, and I still screwed it up.
I know.
But our elected, appointed, and hired public servants.
Mm-hmm.
The Constitution is their administrative rule. And once they break that administrative rule, they have committed high treason. So keep that in mind. But it was good to have you on the show. I hope you enjoyed it. Be back with us next Monday as we will go with this again. Hopefully we'll have some more information for you to update you on where you can go to look for evidence for your cases to be filed into court, because we need to file against the Internal Revenue Service for mail fraud, extortion by mail.
Mm-hmm.
Do that through your local postmaster, who will then pass it on to the Inspector General of the U.S. Postal Service.
Mm-hmm.
So follow the chain of command in filing your paperwork, and have a blessed week, and good night.
Good night.
Anyhow, I would like to say good night and bless you all, and travel safe when you're traveling. May the Great Spirit walk with you. And the most important thing, share this stuff with your children and any other kid in the neighborhood that would like to listen and learn. Because if they don't get the knowledge, because the schools have already failed us, the schools are the worst thing in this country that it has today, because the education level is so dumbed down compared to once it was. Today, most college graduates are a ninth grade education when it was considered in the 1940s. You couldn't have kids being smarter than the next kid, because, oh my God, that was unfair. We couldn't do that in the name of democracy. That's the whole point. Democracy is a British structure, a royalty structure of the crown, of the Bible in England, of the Pope, not U.S. So when you sit there and do this stuff, remember, you are protecting yourself. You have to protect your children. because we got a lot of immigration and stuff coming in this country that is getting assistance when they shouldn't get assistance. It's not our responsibility to take care of these men and women or their children. I mean, I see the people posting, oh, don't you feel bad because this kid's father or mother's being deported? Hey, the kid's got to be deported. It's not an anchor baby. So, read the actual structures of the law, and that goes to the immigration law. All right, Immigration and Naturalization Act, Section 8, USC 1324. Please go read the whole thing. This goes back to what our forefathers did, and this is where people say, well, in England, they came from England, they brought the Bible, they did this. Remember, they were still educated, they were still learning, and they were learning from the native people on how to handle things. They brought their Bible, their beliefs that they grew up, that was hard to change them, but when they had the concept to put the Constitution and the Federalist Papers together, think about the education that they went through to leave the enslavement that they came in the controlling mind. George Washington had slaves, yeah, but look where he came from. You have to take the era of the years back then compared to the knowledge today that we have today. So may the Great Spirit trust walk with you, bless you, and may you have faith in yourself.
Good night.
This is Toad with Revolution News and Information. That concludes the disclaimers with Dave and Ed Johnston. Thanks for tuning in. Please join us same time next week, 7 p.m. Central. Thank you again. And as Ed said, Great Spirit walk with you.
This session